Well, welcome to another episode of the Pastor to Pioneer podcast. I'm here today with Jeff Jackson. Jeff is a former pastor from Louisville, Kentucky area, and who is now entrepreneur, business owner, pioneer, extravaganza. I can't wait for him to share his story, his ups and downs, and what he's doing. But Jeff, welcome to the podcast, man.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me, man. I was excited, to be on this ever since you asked me a few weeks ago. So looking forward to it.
Well, it's a little unique with you because we actually got to hang out in person a few weeks ago in West Michigan, and I don't get to say that about every podcast
Yeah.
guest that I have. So it was a gift, man, to get to hang out with you.
Yeah, it was. I think you were actually even a little surprised when I walked in the door. I think maybe Neil didn't even tell you.
No, I
So
no idea.
yeah.
That was funny because right, we initially connected. It's been a couple years, right,
Yeah,
since we
couple yeah,
connected.
yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, you reached out. We had a call. I connected you with one of our coaches. That guys met a little bit, but you just busy, not the right season, and so we just. So how did you end up? How did you end up coming up to West Michigan then?
Oh, man, should we get into the long story right now or yeah, I mean, man, yeah, so the short story of getting up to Michigan is I've just in the last few months connected with Michael Hester, who's down here in the Louisville, Kentucky area. They moved him and Greg Wofford moved to the west end of Louisville, which is an impoverished area, to make disciples. I mean, heroes in my opinion. I mean, these guys are dedicated, among with some other brothers. Chad Renberg's there in the west end, just a tireless work. But Mike and I connected through a Facebook group, and that kind of morphed into us meeting. We started meeting regularly on Wednesday nights in our house, and then he said, "Man, I got some guys up in Michigan that I really think you should meet." And so we came up, stayed at Neil's house. Just went house to house. Literally, I'm like, man, this is a great picture of just the New Testament church. We went house from house, meeting different people, and I guarantee you, I was asked 6 times while in Michigan, "Hey, tell me your story," And so, it was a great time of just celebrating, what God is doing up there in Michigan. God's really moving there, and our heart and desire is to take that and to do that here. And so, yeah, on our last day there, I knew I was going to meet with you, and we met there for coffee, and I actually was surprised. And you have to be honest with me. Did you have to look me up to see who I actually was, or did you know? Because I was impressed that you remembered who I was.
No, it's really funny because they're just like, oh yeah, Mike's come up with a dude from Louisville. You should come join us for coffee. I was like, all right, yeah, I'm always down for that. And all of a sudden, you walk through the door. I was like, that's that's Jeff. That's Jeff Jackson. No one
Yeah,
told
that
me.
was our
No one
first
told
time
me.
meeting. I mean, we've never met face to
No,
face.
we just
So
done
yeah,
it. I think I don't know, maybe a Zoom call way back when a couple years ago. But here's the truth. You and I are I think we're friends on Facebook. So I just
yeah,
see your posts for your business,
oh
your
yeah,
roofing business and stuff you're thinking about. So it's like always in front of me, and I'm always like, I think you do a great job with that stuff. So it's not that I had to look you up. Your great reels and posts are always before me. So I was like, I know who
yeah,
that is. So it was so
yeah.
fun to get reconnected.
Well, good. Yeah, that was a good time, man, for sure.
Well, isn't it wild too that the coach Wes, who I initially connected you with, and even though you guys met once or twice is all, he's the one that's walked with Mike, who's
Dude,
who's now walking with you
I'm
in
I'm telling you, man, like it's just crazy what God's doing here in Southern Indiana, Louisville, Kentucky. I mean, there have been brothers that have been and sisters been faithfully, sowing seeds, been working the plow. I mean, tirelessly. And there's a lot of great legacy churches in our area. We've got, some really good churches from different denominations. So, man, I mean, brothers and sisters have been faithfully, working the fields here in Southern Indiana. And one of the reasons why we moved here in the first place, we'll move back here, was to plant legacy churches. And now really into disciples, making disciples, and simple churches. And we really believe God is going to do something big in our area, and it really feels like He is beginning to do that. And so, yeah, so Michael Hester and I met through a house church Facebook group. He threw out a message, "Hey, anyone gathering?" And I said, "Hey, dude, maybe this dude wants to meet." And that's not really why he reached out in the beginning, but that did lead to, a month after our initial conversation, us back on Messenger again on a Tuesday. And I said, "Hey, man, let's meet and see what God does." And so that next day, Wednesday, I said Wednesdays are the best days for us. That next day, we met, just my wife, him, and myself and our kids, and we just started to ask God to do something, and that's kind of unfolded to more believers coming. We've got a good group coming tonight, with Neil and Tyler coming in. So it was just crazy, but Michael and I were sitting on my back porch, and I'm just, again, it was one of those, "Hey, tell me your story," and Michael's just, tell me what God's done in his life and how God freed him from addiction, and just done some crazy work, and why he moved here. And and of course, a big part of his story is that he ran into Wes and asked Wes to disciple him. And of course, even at the time, Michael didn't even know what discipleship was. He just said, "Hey, will you meet with me? I've got questions." And Wes, this was during Wes's, I believe, transition from out of the legacy church. And so that's where they first met. I think Michael walked into to where Wes was pastoring. But so I'm sitting on my porch and I'm hearing his story, and I'm like, "Wes, that's just, oh, well, actually what happened is Michael put me in a group text with Wes and Greg Wofford, because just, some encouragement, accountability." And I'm like, "Why do I have this guy's name in my phone, Wes?" And I'm like, and then I start connecting the dots. I was like, and then I said, "Wait a second." I said, "How do you know Wes?" He said, "Wes has been discipling me for 5 years." I said, "Oh," I said, this is just crazy." And there's more connections. I mean, I used to work under Forrest and his leadership there when he was in the Legacy Church, and he's
Yeah.
connected with Big Life. And so it's just, man, there's too much going on to deny that God's at work. And so what we've been praying as a community, first it was read the word and obey, and now it's listen to the Spirit and respond. And we're just seeing just crazy stuff happen. I mean, even last week we saw some healing happen
Come on.
just here in our basement. And man, it's just like, there's just too many coincidences that they're not coincidences, um, to see God working. And so it's just, man, it's been awesome for sure, man, and exciting, and to see how all
Wow.
these pieces have been, God's been putting them together for years, and to now they're coming to fruition. And where you and I met, a year or two ago, and then we're face to face a few weeks ago. It's just, yeah, man, it's been great. I'm humbled, but we're excited, man. We are super excited down here, about what God's doing.
Well, you said that Tyler Ingalls, who was on the podcast a couple episodes ago, Neil, who's on the podcast a few episodes ago, those guys are coming down to hang out with you this weekend. And oddly enough, I didn't get the invite from them to come. So I'll be having a few words with those guys that
Yeah.
you're gonna go hang out
Well,
with
that
Jeff,
I don't
and I
know
didn't
why
get the
we didn't
invite.
think that. We could have done this podcast in person, man. Uh,
Exactly.
dude, what
Exactly.
what the heck, man? We
I'm
definitely
literally
dropped.
on there. They will drive right by my house to go with you. It's like whatever.
We're
I'm
definitely
not
gonna have to give him a hard time.
I'm not bitter. I just,
No,
I
it's okay.
I love the excuse to come hang out.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Well, anytime, seriously.
I love it. You're not that far. You're not that far.
No, it's not. When we drove the other day, it was like 5 hours, so
That's not bad.
definitely a day deal.
I love it. Well, hey, because you've been asked your story so many times, I'm not going to ask the fullness of it. I would love, though, before we get into kind of your transition from pastor to pioneer, I would love this 60-second intro of who is Jeff Jackson. So when someone's like, "Hey, who's Jeff?" What's your 60-second response to
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, the short, and not to be cliche, but definitely a messed up sinner saved by grace, man. I mean, there's been a great just story of redemption in my life, restoration in marriage, but saved at a young age, and immediately felt the call into ministry through my youth pastor, Gene Dotson, just a faithful, who's actually retiring this year, a faithful dude, just really was awesome at mentoring and discipling and bringing up leaders. Served as youth pastor, served as a church planner, always felt just just a little bit of holy discontentment. God did some awesome work through the churches that we planted. the legacy churches, and I still believe in the legacy church, and I know you do as well. But just really felt a stirring in our hearts to move towards this a decentralized, simple church, house church model. And we actually even did it for a year with some great believers that we're still connected to. And it just we didn't know what we didn't know. We wanted to have a heart of multiplication, but we just didn't really know how to get there. And so we've been getting a lot more training now. So I'm excited about that. But yeah, I don't know. Did that fully answer your question? I
That's
might have
good.
left out married,
Right.
wife of 22 years.
Come on.
It'll be 22 years in January. Got two kids, a daughter and a son, 18 and 15. And so, man, we were my wife and I grabbed dinner last night before we went to my son's basketball game, and I just said, we're just said, we're just in an awesome season of life. And I wanted her response, like, what, how do you feel? Like, yeah, I mean, like, just a lot of, things clicking, business is doing great. But really what I am attributing it to is just my connections with Mike and my connection with Greg and our accountability and walking, through life with one another. We're in the word every day. We're reading the scriptures with our family every day. We all read independently and then share on a group chat. But again, it's not anything like we're so awesome because no, man, we should have been doing this, years ago. And we did a lot of informal types of discipleship with our kids, but man, it's just God's been really good to us and don't deserve it, but we're just super pumped, man. It's a crazy time. I mean, everyone who's listening should move to our area. That's what I'm saying. Michigan's not the place anymore. It's Southern Indiana, and we're gonna go for it. So,
Well, those are some fighting words, but good
yeah,
thing there's grace. I'll let it slide.
yeah,
Well, you give me there's a lot of places to jump in. I want to dive into a lot of those things that you just mentioned. I think a good place to start would be yeah, give us just a brief overview of like okay, you're a pastor, you're a church
yeah.
planter. What was that season like for you?
Yeah. I mean, definitely good times, definitely challenging times. But coming out of youth ministry, I felt early on that youth ministry wasn't the calling for me, that there was something more. I've definitely always been an entrepreneur. And this was in 2010. 2010 in our area at least, and even nationwide, there wasn't a ton of stuff on church planting. It was starting to take shape and starting to get more. We had seen some other brothers just do some God do some incredible things with their churches, and it was kind of like the launch large strategy and the somewhat of the attractional model. But we just kind of stepped in and said, we want to see Southern Indiana radically changed, for God's glory. And so we went for it. And we had a group of believers that were with another church that transitioned. And so we had took a group of believers that were already gathering as a church. And it really wasn't the ideal situation, but it's where we were at and what I felt God called us to do. And so, man, we just went for it. I mean, making mistakes along the way. I There's a lot of positives. We went from kind of that attractional model to, hey, maybe we should need to focus on making disciples and a big emphasis on the church name was Journey Church, so we had journey groups, and so we really transitioned to, I would say, more of a, you know, today I would say I wouldn't say this at the time, but today more of a church of house churches. Like we really emphasized community among the believers. We did everything that we do today in our church that meets Wednesday nights at our house, other than baptize and take communion in our small journey groups. But we went from that, and then we always wanted to be a church planting church, and so God allowed us to plant four other churches and then to sponsor a fifth church. So, and all those churches except one, which was the one that I left, are still active in some form or fashion today. Two of them merged with other existing churches and that they continue to thrive and grow. And so there was a lot of great things. I mean, we forged relationships with people who are still. I mean, they'll be lifelong friends. I mean,
Awesome.
we still hang out with a lot of them today. They'll be in our home. still involved with their kids as much as we can. You know, we're definitely different at different seasons of life, but man, it was a great time. But along the way, um, I was in a bad place
Mm.
spiritually,
Wow.
and I would say probably from what I know now, a lot of pastors get to that place eventually.
Yeah.
A lot of these pastors leading legacy churches are just they're men without a country, and they're on an island by themselves, and they don't have people walking with them. They can't be open and honest about the sin struggles in their life. I was addicted to pornography, and got that came to light through my wife catching me, and
Mm,
it was not a pleasant experience for her. I mean, it just
mm,
very traumatizing for her, and we went through some intense coaching,
mm.
and training, through a ministry here in Louisville, which was really awesome. It was a godsend, and, by God's grace, we were able to come out of that and even stronger than before,
Wow.
and now have a story, of redemption. But that's what was going on in my life as I was trying to pastor and lead, churches. It was just I actually got to the point where I was like, I have to step down. I had a fear of just tarnishing the gospel in the church, and really I did tarnish it,
Mm,
but it wasn't public and on display like we see a lot of churches
mm.
today with all this sexual immorality. And so, I mean, I'm no different than any of the other guys that get caught. I just I just didn't get put on public, display and shame. So yeah,
I'd
it's just a
imagine
lot.
I'd imagine for you that you probably have, like, a pretty different response when you hear of pastors publicly walking, getting caught in sin, and, like, a lot of people are quick like, "Oh my gosh, this is" I mean, it is terrible, but I'd imagine for you, there's a little bit of a different response, a little bit more compassion.
Yeah, 100% because you'll see you'll see guys that that are having full blown affairs with church staff or with other women in the church or maybe outside the church, and it's easy to judge those guys and judge their actions and decisions. But man, I was that person. I mean, I didn't have that physical affair, but I was one decision, I was one sin away from that, and so it's and I think if we're all really being honest with ourselves, we all are like none of
Yeah.
us are exempt or
Yeah.
just automatically protected from that. I mean, we are protected, through obviously the grace of God and the power of the Spirit that's within us, but none of us we're all flesh, man, and we all have sin issues, and so yeah, it's definitely different. Um, but I definitely feel for those guys, and I really just and really the answer is discipleship, and we can boil it down to whatever it might need to be. But if brothers that are in the ministry, don't have other faithful brothers walking with them, it's just going to continue to happen. And I think it's the power and authority and power and money that comes with those positions. Sometimes I feel like the enemy uses.
I was just gonna ask, like, I mean, you kinda hint at that, like, what causes that, and I think that makes
Yeah,
a ton of sense, the power, the title,
yeah.
the authority, the money, but also, why do you think it is that most pastors don't have someone walking with them in this stuff?
I mean, from my experience, it's and thankfully at our church, I did have brothers that I could be open with. Um, I didn't have the courage to be open with, to the extent of, the sin and really what the ramifications of that would have been. Because I would have had to face my wife and, maybe even some other things. And so I wasn't brave enough to face that. But I think a lot of guys, there is no that we have I have a buddy that says don't prop up what's failing, fuel what's burning. And I feel like in the church, not that it's failing, but we've propped up and we've idolized the pulpit so much that if the pastor messes up, if we find out that the pastor is real and that he sins, then our whole house of cards is going to come tumbling down. And so by de facto, that there's not an environment for pastors just to be real and just be honest. Hey, I'm struggling and I need help. And and because immediately when that would happen, we would eat him alive. The church would just eat him alive. Like, and I would say that as the norm. Of course, there's solid churches out there that I've walked along with pastors who have failed, and praise God for them. So I'm not. I always want to preface it that I'm not putting the entire every church under that,
Of
under
course.
that banner, but there's definitely churches that you hear of these result or you hear of these churches that walk along with pastors who have failed morally. But more often than not, that's not that we just don't know how to deal with it. And I would say this that most likely the the and this may be gonna sound judgmental. I don't really mean it because I was that person. That I believe the men in the churches that are holding the pastor accountable are struggling themselves.
Wow.
As a whole, again,
Wow.
that doesn't I'm not, saying everyone's like that,
Yeah, but
but
a
as a
lot.
whole, we've we've pretty much said an elder in a church or a leader in a church is the smart businessman who's made a lot of money, who obviously is successful. And yeah, God has used those men immensely, but sometimes we have practical we let the practicality of things or the success in something else override spiritual health, and I think that's the problem really with the church is just there's a lot of spiritually unhealthy people leading the church, and I'm not pointing the finger. That was me. Like, and I know I'm not the only one. I know I'm not the outlier, in this situation. So yeah. But so when we do hear that, it does break my heart, man, because not only do I know what he's going through, but I know what his wife's going through. I know what his kids going through. Our kids were pretty protected from from my failure, but we've been open and upfront with them later on in life, so they knew they know what happens.
Wow. So if I'm hearing you right, you're saying that's what then ultimately caused you to step away from traditional pastoral ministry was kind of when that all went down?
Yeah, I think that was the antithesis of it. Like because I wasn't spiritually healthy, I was burnt out. I couldn't sustain the pace. We planted, four churches in 8 years, and there were times when there was more. Yeah, it was crazy. There was time when there was more people, standing up front to be sent out at our, family meetings than there were people sitting in the pews that were staying. So, we literally would raise up leaders and send them out. We wouldn't hold on to them. I mean, some of it was I mean, would I go back and do it the same way? I don't know if I would or not, but, I feel like there was a lot of fruit that came from that.
Mm, mm,
People definitely thought we were crazy for, basically every time we developed or trained up a leader, we were sending them out. And God just brought us a lot of great dudes, a lot of great pastors who were better than I was in a lot of regards. I was kind of just like the fuel that, you know, kept the fire burning in the sense of like pushing the agenda. We wanted to be a church planting church. And I mean, and to this day, there's, some churches we didn't even plant, but we got guys that went on to pastor in Florida. We got guys planting in Oklahoma or leading a church in Oklahoma. We've got people in Colorado. And so that wasn't even the four churches. I mean, God brought us leaders that were ready, and
mm.
we just kind of lit the fire that was already burning
Awesome.
inside of them. So it was a good time. But yeah, the sin issue in my life is really what kind of got me to the point where um I just didn't know how to keep going because it was falling apart. And had I stayed, I think it would have just raveled. So
Wow. So what did you end up doing then? Okay, so you step away from pastoral ministry. What did you step into at that point in time? And what year was that then you stepped out of that?
so we stepped out of that in 2018. So from 2018 to about 2024, I went through just a very dark season.
Mm,
Um, and because the pornography wasn't really that didn't really come to light until 2023. Um, so it was a 2022. Yeah, 2022. It was a significant, 4 years, I think it was like 3.5 years when we stepped down from the church. But I was always bivocational. I was full time for maybe 2 years, 2 of the 8 years, and so the other 6 I was bivocational, and that's a whole 'nother story of success and more failures of making money and losing money and going into debt and lawsuits, and man, my life was a wreck, bro. Like
Jeez.
it was not good, and, there was a lot of people hurt along the way, that, I've tried to, reconcile and work on those relationships, and sometimes it's just, sometimes more damage is done than can be fixed, at least on this earth or without the power of the Lord, but, so yeah, so we went just into full-time entrepreneurship. I probably had 3 or 4 businesses in between the time of 2018 to about 2023. Um, December of 2023, we started a new roofing company, which I first started in roofs in 2014, but came back to roofs. I had a health situation. I mean, dude, it's like I'm not saying like I mean like everything's all perfect now because it's not, but man, I almost died from a health complication, and it was like my world was rocked. I mean, even to the point where I was like, you know, what am I gonna do? Because I still felt there was a call in my life. I mean, just like God puts a call in every believer's life, and I think that Ephesians 4, we need to step into that more as just everyday believers. But I just felt like there was more to my life than what I had, reduced it down to, because it was just like I was brought low, man. I mean, low. I mean, to the point where when I was sick, doctors had me convinced that I was, depressed and then had anxiety, and I just boiled it down that I was losing my mind. Like it was, yeah, it was crazy, man. Um, but I just always along that way just felt like God wasn't done, and I just really wanted to kind of, you know, figure that out. And it wasn't always easy,
What were
but it
those
was.
what were those interactions with God like in those times where, right, you're at the pit, it's horrible, everything's collapsing and around you, um, and but you still feel like there's this call on your life. Like what did those interactions look like with him?
Yeah, I mean, if just being honest, like I didn't have many, conversations with God at that time. Like I was still just, you know, I think there was pride in my heart that was, um, not that I was angry at God, but, and not that I ever abandoned my faith. I mean, I never wavered as far as like, believing that, Jesus, the true God, and that trusting him for my salvation, but I just wasn't living it out. And, I think when I did start having conversations with God, um, it really came through, repentance and, just a recommitment, and really, I would say that was attributed to, my wife catching me in pornography. Man, I was so deep in just my heart spiritually was just so dark from that you couldn't all I was doing was trying to survive,
Mm.
and physically. I mean, dude, there was times where, as an entrepreneur, we go through it's different now, but early on we would go through massive swings of highs and lows, where you've collected a bunch of money, everything's good to where you have nothing and you don't even know how you're going to make payroll, or you don't know how you're going to pay your bills. And to be honest, I don't even know to this day how my wife stayed with me. I mean, by the grace of God, I mean, I've seen wives leave their husbands for way less than what I put her through. Um a big testament to her and her faith. I mean, and we even talk to this day, like, we don't know how you get through things, how people get through things without that relationship with the Lord. And I think that's where I was at. I wasn't having conversations with him. I would have an occasional, you know, I wasn't in the word regularly, but I always had faithful brothers in my life. I've got a great brother up in Wisconsin, Jedediah Haas, who's a disciple maker to the nth degree. He never stopped believing in me. His dad prays for me every day. Even I talked to him the other day. Um, there's been many others that, have just been in my corner when, when I didn't even, you know, believe that there was hope moving forward. So and I would say, and not to get completely or transition out of that, but that really led to, oddly enough, that led to a lot of bitterness in my heart towards the legacy church.
Uh,
And so when I'm trying to go to church, and I just go in, and I'm prideful, and I'm like, I could do this better, and there's a better way. And dude, it was unhealthy, and it was sinful, it was wrong. I mean, I finally got over that, and I was just like, I remember sitting in church. I mean, the church that we are connected to, here in our community, we still have a lot of friends and family that are there. I mean, man, God's doing a great work in this church. I mean, people are getting saved, they're discipling people. It's just, at the end of the day, it's not the route that I feel called to go down. But yeah, that was a long answer to a little question you
well,
asked.
that's
But
great. Well,
um,
I am curious a little bit more on that then of like what led you to realize, uh, I can't go back to the way I've done church. I can't go back to the institution as much as like, yeah, God's moving there. God's working with that. Just like, I can't go back to that. My family
yeah,
can't. What was
yeah.
stirring in you to come to those conclusions?
Well, I will say in 2008 to 2010 is when I really started getting excited about church planning. And I had dove in and looked at house churches at that time, and from what I knew about it and what our area had experienced, it was just basically people that were mad at the legacy church. And really, it was just a smaller version of what was already going on. And so I was like, well, I'm not really interested in that. um, so gathering in smaller communities is something that has been on my heart since 2008. But one of the main things when we evaluated our church experience when we were planting, because it was a great body of believers, man. I mean, just awesome people. When we evaluated our experience there, what really made an impact was when we gathered in small groups, and when we went through life. I mean, like, I can tell you, you know, going to the hospital and holding a stillborn child, of a family that just went through that. And all you really have, just like Job had his friends that came and sat with him for 7 days and said nothing. Like, sometimes there's no words to say, you just the ministry of presence. And or laying on the floor and crying with a wife of who had her husband walk out on her. Like, we went through life with real stuff with people. And the most significant time that we say made an impact on mine and Jamie's lives and our children's life is when we were in super connected in small settings with other believers who we could walk life on life with, and who we could be there for them. So when we started reevaluating, we're like, okay, well, we're going to get back into the legacy church. We've got to get in a small group. And we just couldn't or wouldn't. I don't know. Like, we just struggled to reconnect, because what we had experienced at our church that we planted was just something so special. You're always looking for that again, and if you don't find it, then you automatically think that, well, whatever you were trying to connect to is wrong or bad, or it's not for you. And I think that's definitely a lie that the enemy will tell us, is like, you know it not going to church is the worst thing we could do. Like, going to church, even if you don't feel like legacy church is the thing for you, going to a legacy church is better than sitting at home and doing nothing, in my opinion. Like, I know there's people that have differing views on that. I think the church is more than, you know, we could have the argument more than just my family. I know there's times where maybe if there's no believers, then that's all the church you have. So I think it's, but neither here nor there. I think it's gathering with people that are important. And so we just said, we want to gather with people at where the traction really happens in our lives, where that transformation really happens. And that was in a smaller setting. And so that was essentially, what really led us to even reaching out to you originally a few years ago, of just seeing, we need to gather with other believers. We need to strip away all the other things that I'm not saying are bad, but they aren't helping us in, making disciples that
Mm,
make disciples. And they're not allowing us to gather intimately with other believers. So we wanted to just strip that all away so we could focus on that. And we did it for a year, and it was good, but it didn't sustain. And I've got theories on why, but um, yeah, man. I mean, like I think that was the main reason why we came back to you know, I don't know. I say decentralized church, the simple church, um, the house church model. But I think I feel like the caveat now recently in my life has been, the discipleship making model that leads to gathering simply for churches, because you can have a house church that just replicates what you do at the legacy church, and there's still no transformation, there's still no disciple making going, there's still no, we're not out sharing our faith with other people. Um and that's something that we've added to our repertoire, I guess, recently, is just looking for opportunities to share the gospel. And what's funny, side note of that, when you start just telling God you want those opportunities, um, He shows them to you. And they've always been there. It's just we have to be intentional, on that. And so now we have other brothers and sisters in Christ that are walking with us that have the same mindset, so
Mm,
we can hold each other accountable.
mm.
Um, and and I think that's just what what's essential for the Christian faith, is that we can walk with other brothers and sisters doing the same thing that Christ commanded us to do.
So good. So okay, you did it with this group for a year, and that kind of fizzled out. What made you decide to stick with it and give it another go versus like,
Yeah,
man, well, we tried that.
yeah.
Let's go back to doing something else, to legacy.
Yeah, good question. Because what we did after that is we're like, well, I guess we're going to go back to the Legacy Church, and we're just going to be committed. Because I think before we were there more of consumers, and we weren't really we didn't really dive in. So we came back. I started serving, like driving golf carts, pick people up, and um, we were committed to being, to regular attendance. My wife and daughter serving in the kids ministry, all the things that we're supposed to do, and but still not seeing transformation that we wanted to see. And so honestly, I don't know if I had planned to come back. I just said, "Hey, it didn't work out. Let's be all in where our feet are." Because again, the church in our community that we were attending is great church. I mean, I know the pastor personally, know his family. I know a lot of the staff members. Our family, our extended family, some of our extended family goes there. I mean, great church, great people, made an incredible impact in our community. But it wasn't what God was calling us to do.
Mm,
And I think some of the reasons why the first try at it didn't work, the first try at a house church didn't work, is because, and I think this is where what you guys are doing at Pastor Pioneers is so important, is like I was bringing with me so much of the DNA of how we do church into that model, and you really just have to strip that entirely away. And even the second go around that we when we started gathering here in my home, I was still hanging on to things that I wanted to bring in, and I just didn't realize that I was holding on to those things. So I think discovering to do church a new way, is essential. And I don't want to be clear, and I know this is your heart too. It's not that I feel like, my way is better than, the legacy church way. I would describe to D all the above. Like if we have faithful brothers and sisters that are preaching the gospel, that are making disciples, if your way is a little different than the way I'm doing it, great, because you're going to reach people that I'm not going to reach. And I feel like there is a biblical precedent where you do see larger gatherings of believers. And so I'm not against it. It's just not what I'm called to do.
mm. So what feels different this go around compared to last time?
So I think one of the biggest things is, we started gathering Wednesday nights, organically. No, we're not calling this a church. We're just getting together, praying, believing to God to do something, asking him to do something, and just being obedient. And it kind of came to a head pretty early on after we got back from Michigan. I'm like, I'm all in. Like I came back from Michigan and told my wife, um, I'm I'm out of the legacy church, um, and I'm going all in because I believe that's what it takes. Part of the problem that we had before is we were kind of half in, half out. We were still going to Legacy Church Sunday mornings, and we would gather Sunday nights. And again, I'm not saying that any of that was wrong or bad, but for me, I just had to have a laser focus. So I think that's the first thing is what's different this time is we have a laser focus on what we're doing, and we're doing it. We're not perfect at it, but what we're making disciples, outside of our, outside of the people we're gathering with, in hopes of God to work and do something in their lives. I think the other thing that's totally different about it this time is and and this is what we kind of had this great meeting. We had hung out, some of the guys that have been gathering at our church. We had hung out one night, smoked a cigar. Afterwards, we're sitting in my truck, and I just like, guys, if we're gonna do this, I just need to know if you're in or not. Like, I need to know like who's got my back. So when I'm messing up, when I'm living in sin and you see it, you'll call me out on it so that we can rid ourselves of that and empty ourselves of that sin and fill ourselves with the Spirit, and so that we can move forward as a community. I needed to know because I know my past, and I know how it's easy to hide. It's easy to it's easy to conceal your sin. But I need brothers in my life that were going to call me and call it what it is. And I'm going to tell you from that already. I had a brother call me up this week and said, "Man, I just gotta be honest with you. I'm dealing with pride and jealousy, and I just want to bring it to the light so that we can put this to rest." I was like, "Man, that's so awesome. Like, like praise God that we can have these conversations." And so that's what's different is we're just being real and honest with each other. We've stripped away, anything that we knew about church from our past. And again, not to say that it's bad, but to say that in order to do this model, we have to we had to start from nothing. And so, dude, it looks totally different. I mean, I'll tell you, I'm a big picture guy. I love big things. I love big worship concerts, and if we're going to make an impact, I want to get as many people in the room as possible to do that. I remember early on in student ministry, I'll never use a CD to lead worship in our youth group. We'll always have a live band. We'll always, like we'll do it with excellence, and but at the end of the day, that doesn't really matter. Yes, we need to do things with excellence. Yes, we need to do things the best that we can with what we've been given. But man, we open up Spotify and
Heck
we
yeah.
sing worship songs together because now Spotify, for the most part, has
Has
the
the
lyrics for
lyrics.
all
It's
of it, so you can just
fantastic.
watch it right off your screen. But I mean, like I said, man, um, we're praying for healing over people. We're I just got to share this.
Do it.
We went around and we were one of the questions that came up last week is like, what would you do if you saw a miracle happen right before you? Like, how would you respond? And and so it was a great conversation that we had because we really are believing for that. We're really believing for God to just do the supernatural so we can just be like, man, look how awesome God is and what he's doing. And I'm sitting there the whole time. My back was hurt in two spots. I'm sitting there the whole time going, I know I need to ask for prayer. Like, how hypocritical would I be to say I'm all in with this community, but hold this back? And I think it's because we hold back because we don't really believe that God can heal. Um, we do, but we don't. A lot of times with us, really feel like it can happen. I said we finished for the night, and I said, guys, I just have to say something. And dude, I got emotional, man, because I'm not one to ask for help. It's just not in my nature. I'm a man. I can handle it. And I just said, guys, I would be a hypocrite if I didn't ask for this right now. But my back has been hurting really. I mean, it's been an ongoing thing. I got in a car wreck 2 years ago, and I have a spot in my back that inflames up, and it was inflamed up. And I said, I want to ask for prayer, and I'm going to ask if you guys will just lay hands and pray for me. That was a big step for me. I had tears going down my face just asking. And my wife sits up in the corner. She's like, this is gonna get really weird, but I think you should lay face down and we should lay hands on you."
Come on.
And I was just like, "That is weird." Um, but okay, like I'm at this point, like I'm committed, bro. Like I can't just not list not be like not acknowledge that the spirit's working in her life to direct me how to lay. Like what is this even? So I laid down, man, and our church came around and laid hands on me, and we're just praying, and it got around to my son. I believe I believe God used everyone, but I believe God especially used my son, 15-year-old, not even 15, he's 14, he'll be 15 next month. And he prayed with a power that I've never heard before. And dude, this and I talked to my wife, I talked to the other dudes that were in there, and I said that was something special happened there. And um and just like the power of God fell in the moment, bro. And it was like, it was powerful. I'm like, God is using this 14-year-old kid that all of a sudden was praying like a giant. And, and, and I wouldn't say that I had immediate relief. I definitely came up from that experience and I felt better. But the days following, like all the pain has subsided. It's gone.
Come on.
And, and man, God healed me. Now, whether it's, he healed me forever, but in the moment, like he healed me, and I just was like, this is what we're praying and asking God to do. So, like, what's different to your question? What's different is we're stepping into that believing that God can and will do the miraculous,
Come
and
on.
he wants to use the body to do that. And for me, I would have never done that. I would have never gone in front of my church of 1,500 people to ask for prayer. I know that's what we're supposed to do. Supposed to go before the elders, anoint with oil, lay hands. I would have never done that. And I almost didn't do it last Wednesday night. I mean, like, dude, I had tears rolling down my face just even asking for prayer, and I'm emotional about it now just because of what we saw God do. And I and I kind of came back to, I was like, tell me what did you think happened in that moment? Like everyone acknowledges that God was there, and just the power and the presence that we experienced.
Come
So
on.
like that's what's different, man, is that we're really just believing for the miraculous. Like, and I've been telling the brothers that we're gathering with, like they've been at it for a long time. Greg and Mike, they sell everything. They moved to the west end of Louisville, which is not a desirable area. Um, and they've gone all in. They've been tirelessly sowing seeds, watering the soil, the seeds, and they've seen fruit. I think if they really got serious, they would agree with that. But I feel like some of of them have some, or just some, maybe we didn't see the fruit that they wanted to see. But I'm telling them that, and we're believing this, that what they've been doing is about to pay off. Like what
Mm,
we're seeing here in the Louisville, Southern Indiana area, bro. It's something as a foot. God is doing something, and we just want to be a part of it. And so, what's different? I don't know what's different. I mean, because God's the same yesterday, today, and forever. But it's just like the timing is right, and God is not done. And I believe this is true not just in our area. I believe that when we are faithful to do what God has called us to do, then we are inviting that into our lives. And I believe, well, God's going to do it regardless. He's going to do it whether we're obedient or not. But as I'm sitting here thinking, even what you're doing, like there are pastors that have this holy discontentment. They know that there's something more, and there is. Like I have a brother that's staying in my house right now. Actually, I've got to kick him out so Neil and Tyler can come in. He's he's getting his PhD at Southern right now. He's a faithful dude pastoring a church up in St. Louis, and I'm all for him, man. I want to him to see success, and these brothers that are in the legacy church, we can get there. It's just harder. It's a harder road to strip away the things that we've just built up as a culture to say that
totally.
this is church, and it's not essential for church, but we've created the monster, and now we've got to keep it going. So all the props to them, because I believe their road is more difficult than the road I'm on. And for them to stay obedient is going to be a harder journey for them than it
For
is for
sure.
me. So I think, again, going back to what's different is we've just stripped it all away and said, let's do what we know is essential for the church, and let's focus on that. And I think there's people that are going to hear this podcast that they know that that's God calling them right in this moment. And I'm even saying, like, the work that you guys have been doing, Neil up in Michigan as well, like all of this that God has been doing, and all the plowing and the seed planting, like it's coming to fruition. We're seeing that, but it's going to continue to come. Like the the harvest is still plentiful. Like
That's
that
right.
scripture is still true.
That's
The
right.
workers are still few. That's true as well. So we need more workers to head to the harvest because it's coming, and it's going to come with or without us. God's going to do it. Um, I just want to be a part of it, and I think that's the biggest thing that's different this time is just saying, not me, you know, it's all God, and
Wow.
let's just attach ourselves to what he's already doing.
I love it. Well, man, I could go on and on about this stuff with you. I just am so encouraged by your story, so encouraged by what God's doing. It's clear as you share your story, like it is the Lord doing a work in you and in your family. And it's incredible to hear. And I just am grateful for the ways that as the Lord has brought you low and broken you, that you have humbled yourself and let him use you and shape you. And that has not been easy, man. I know it's not been easy. But I just commend you for continuing to walk open handedly with him and receive from him and respond to him. So I guess as we're wrapping up today, I'm wondering, is there anything else on your heart, anything else that you feel like, that's something burning in me to share that you haven't gotten a chance to share yet today?
Hmm. I One thing I feel, what has been transformative in my life, just really in the last 10 weeks, is extreme obedience.
Mm,
And I believe that we need other pastors that are in the fold, that are wondering how they're going to pay the bills, wondering, am I even being, you know, successful? Am I making disciples? And even to the mom at home or to the business guy, like, we as believers need to have and operate within extreme obedience. And I believe that when we do that, we will see the power of God move in a way that we've never seen before. And it's not because the power is on us. We're ushering, you know, and inviting God in to just do what He's already doing, and we get to be a part of it. But I think it really, if we want to be a part of it, we have to have that extreme obedience. And that can mean different things. But for me, that means getting in the Word, obeying the Word, and then listening to the Spirit, and taking action. And that's where we're at right now as a community. That's what we're trying to do, and we are seeing God move just in a mighty way. And it's just the beginning. It's just the beginning.
I love it. Well, I'm so grateful for you, man. I look forward to when we get to hang out again. And I'm thinking, even as I hear you talk, at some point we should do a podcast episode with you and maybe a couple other guys, former
Yeah,
pastors that have gone the entrepreneurial route and started
yeah,
businesses, because I think that's a whole side of it too for those that are listening that are like, how am I going to pay the bills? What am I going to do? For some of them, it might be entrepreneurship. And for you, it's provided, yeah, the finances, but the ability to really step into this. And I
yeah.
think it's
I
been a
think
gift
that's
for you.
key, and not to get too far into that because we can do another one. I'd love to. Um, I think that's what you hit on is key, because I think a lot of pastors that are wondering, I can't rock the boat and I can't make the moves that I can't have that extreme obedience, because if I do,
Yeah.
my paycheck's on the line.
That's right, that's right.
So there's definitely ways to get set free from that, so that they can walk in that extreme obedience. So yeah, that's it. You bring up a great point.
Well, and I just think for even for those that are listening, like, to put that on your radar, like, this not being an entrepreneur is not for everyone by any means, but for some, it's a great option. And for some
Yep.
pastors listening, if the Lord's stirring in your heart, even reach out. I'll connect you with Jeff, and he can give you the ins and outs on
Yeah, I can
how
tell you
to.
what not to do.
Yeah, exactly. Totally, totally. Well, Jeff, man, I'm really grateful for you, and I'm grateful for your honesty, your humility, and your just generosity with telling your story today, man. It's been a real gift, and I'm sure it's been a blessing to those that have listened to it as well. Thanks, man.
Yeah. Yeah, Britton, I appreciate you, appreciate what you're doing at Pastor Pioneer, and looking forward to, continue to see that fruit in your ministry.
Thanks, buddy.